Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 is one of the most iconic books in American literature. Now, it was Bradbury's first published novel, but today this book is a mainstay in a whole bunch of school curriculum. It has been translated over 35 languages and is considered to be one of the most epic dystopian classics. But what impresses me the most is that such a popular and notorious work has an allusion to the Bible, and more specifically to the book of Ecclesiastes and the book of Revelation. The book of Ecclesiastes is symbolic to the narrative. It reflects and parallels to worldly vanities and emptiness, while at the same time exposing what is real and meaningful. The explicit connection is made towards the end of the story, towards the end of Montag's journey, when he meets with the other group of men around the campfire, and Granger asks him, "What do you have to offer?" Which Montag replies with part of the book of Ecclesiastes and maybe a little of Revelation. Granger then asks, "Where is it?" And Montag says, "Here." But it is more than that. It isn't just here because Montag has memorized a few verses. It's here because Montag has lived it. He has gone through it. He has endured it in his search for wisdom and truth. So while the actual reference to the book of Ecclesiastes is not made to the very end of the story, its theme and concept begins at the very start of Fahrenheit 451. It is very important to note that Ecclesiastes falls into the Bible's wisdom literature. Alongside with Proverbs and Job, all these books beg and ask the question, how can we and what does it mean to have a good life? Ecclesiastes opens up with, "In the words of the preacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem." Now this is obviously Solomon, but the preacher in Hebrew is the Kohelet. Now the Kohelet, who is Solomon, is the gatherer, he's the teacher. And this is important because he's on the same journey that Montag is in. He's in a search for true meaning, wisdom, and truth. Now, of course, Montag's awakening does not begin until he meets Clarice McKellen. Clarice is constantly searching for meaning, always asking questions, and it is she who challenges Montag's worldview and opens his eyes to his reality. From the beginning, Montag's purpose and meaning to life was the burning of books. It was a pleasure to burn. But then he starts noticing the worldly vanities, emptiness, and misery that he actually lives in. You have the wall screens, the fast-paced life, the drug overdoses, the rejection of knowledge, the lack of affection with his wife. And so Montag realizes that his life is actually meaningless, echoing the Kohelet's cry. Meaningless, meaningless, everything is utterly meaningless. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting, because in the Hebrew, the word meaningless is hevel, and hevel is defined as vapor or smoke. Of course, it's figurative. That meaningless is like smoke. It's like, it appears solid, but when you try to grab it, there's nothing there. And so the connection is made that Montag's book-burning, incendiary life always results in smoke, in emptiness, meaningless, meaningless, everything is utterly meaningless. So, like the Kohelet, Montag begins to deconstruct all the ways that he finds meaning and purpose in life, and concludes that they are all meaningless, they're all empty, that all the activities and hopes that he invests his life in to find meaning and purpose, like wealth, career, social status, pleasure, it all returns empty, meaningless. So Montag goes through this process throughout the book, and it is at the end when we hear the words of the Kohelet once more, after he meets up with Granger and the other group of men. Now at this point, the men alongside with Montag have seen the city across the river incinerated by bombers. They decide to go back into the city to search for survivors, and then Granger starts speaking about the legend of the Phoenix, and compares it to how mankind keeps going in these endless cycles of destruction. Now, these words by Granger also reflect the opening lines of Ecclesiastes. Granger says, "Hold on to one thought. You are not important. You're not anything. Someday the load we're carrying may help somebody." Of course, in Ecclesiastes, the first chapters speak about how we are nothing, that we're nothing but like a little wisp in the timeline of the universe, that the mountains and the earth and everything has been there before and will continue to be there after us. Right after, the group starts walking alongside the river, And Montag starts reflecting on these words, and so the Kohelet comes to mind. To everything there is a season, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. And it fits, because it too says that mankind is going from season to season, living, dying, planting, reaping, killing, healing, weeping, laughing, loving, and hating. These cycles define human existence, but Montag keeps these words to himself. Instead, he searches for something more hopeful, a sense that these ongoing cycles can finally come to an end and then a new world begin. So instead of using Ecclesiastes, Montag turns to the final chapter of the final book of the Bible, which is Revelation, and he reads, "And on either side of the river was there a tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree were from the healing of the nations." This, he decides, is a quote he will share when we reach the city. But it can't end there, because Montag is still missing the final lesson from the Kohelet. That wisdom, or the search for wisdom, is also meaningless. It doesn't guarantee anything. The final words of Ecclesiastes conclude, in chapter 12 verse 12, that the making of books there is no end. That books and wisdom do not answer life's existential meaning. Of course, it's not the first time we hear this. This same message has been echoed throughout Montag's search. In the words of Faber, it's not the books you need, it's some of the things that were once in books. When we had all the books we needed, we still insisted on finding the highest cliff to jump off. In the words of Granger, but even when we had the books on hand a long time ago, we didn't use what we got out of them. We went right on insulting the dead. We went right on spitting in the graves of all the poor ones who died before us. So there is a greater wisdom that these men have that Montag doesn't yet fully understand. Perhaps he didn't read or memorize that far into the words of the Kohelet. Maybe he too, like the phoenix, will have to die and be reborn again in a greater wisdom, a wisdom that is beyond books. So it leaves us with a question unanswered: what is the meaning of life? And more importantly, how do we find it? And maybe that's it. The meaning of life is accepting meaningless. Accepting that all of life is out of our control. Rather, we must embrace the enjoyment of the simple good things in life, like friendships, family, the sunrise, the fall of rain. We can't control these things. They're not always guaranteed. But that's their beauty. Clarice, now she got it. She understood this. In the midst of their vain and meaningless and empty world, she found meaning. I like to walk, smell things, and look at things. And sometimes stay up all night walking and watch the sunrise. I like to tell them, I like to put my head back like this and let the rain fall in my mouth. Now Ray Bradbury, he understands this, but what he might not want to admit is that in order for all of this to work, in order to obtain true freedom, meaning, and truth in our uncontrollable timelines, we must place our faith on something greater, on a greater wisdom. And so theology works its way into the story and into Montag's search. Only when we trust in God can we truly be free to simply enjoy life as we experience it. So finally the Kohelet ends. And this is the Kohelet, Solomon's final cry, his final verdict. My son, beware of anything beyond these. Of making of books there is no end, and much study is weariness of the flesh. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God, and keep his commandments, for this is a whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, with every secret thing, whether good and evil. Thank you for watching. This has been a literary analysis of Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451 and its allusion to the book of Ecclesiastes.